What's up, everybody? It's Justin with S&K Greenhouse.
What's up?
I'm here with Bruce Duncan. A little backstory about Bruce. First of all, we're giving a yard tour, and this is going to be incredible. Bruce does vegetables, conifers, shrubs, flowers, annuals, perennials, all that. But Bruce used to shop at S&K, and I actually hired him while he was in retirement. He worked for us part-time, but it really turned into full-time. And now he is completely retired, and he's pretty much a full-time gardener now. He's lived on this property for 3 years, and he's going to give us a little garden tour, and I think you guys are in for a treat.
Justin said that we've been here, my wife and I, for 3 years. The hardest part of this landscaping was to make it look like it's not 3 years old. My goal was to make it look like it's been here a long time. We started with a clean slate. As a matter of fact, there was some stuff here, and I had a landscaper come in, plow it all up, cleaned it up, and we started with a clean slate.
It's totally transformed. This is the front of the house, and Bruce, if you want to just kind of lead us off in this direction and tell us what we got going on here.
Well, we're starting here. This is my favorite conifer garden. I have several conifer gardens around the house, but this is my favorite, and I wanted to get this view so you could see the contrast between color, size, and texture.
We're out here in Falston, North Carolina, Zone 7, and we have a lot of clay. So Bruce has had to do a lot of amending of the soil, if you will, to get these plants to look like this.
Growing conifers, it's not just that we're in Zone 7, we're in Zone 7 in the South.
Yes.
In the Piedmont of Carolina. This is hard. This is hard to grow conifers.
It's hard to make it look like this.
But you can. And one of the best guides, Tom Cox from Georgia, who has a wonderful arboretum, has written a book about how to grow conifers in the South. I would recommend, if you want to do that, read that book. It will help you. But getting back to what Justin said, what has helped grow these conifers here, I had 2 dump truck loads of brown topsoil. What I mean by brown topsoil, that's a topsoil that has sand in it. Conifers need good drainage. I had that brought in. These beds have about 15 to 18 inches of that topsoil, and when I plant conifers, I don't even dig a hole. I put them on top and then mound dirt up to them. And that's one of the keys in growing conifers in our region. I also want to point out, this is not just conifers. Now, I call it my conifer garden because they make the foundation of this area. But intermingled among these conifers, I have shrubs like loropetalum, I have the hydrangea, the limelight, and I have the strawberry vanilla hydrangea. Of course, I have abelia, another nice shrub. And then I mix annuals in with these, so you
get the blooms and the color.
Get the blooms and the color.
I love the contrast of the gold abelia kaleidoscope with the purple loropetalum and then the blue chamaecyparis. Obviously, you're being strategic and getting as many colors and textures as possible.
Exactly.
And we've always agreed that's what makes a landscape beautiful.
And I don't know which conifer is my favorite, but man, I'm telling you, this Blue Boulevard, girl, you sexy.
That's a hard one to beat right there.
She's beautiful, but of course a gold thread cypress, a Bosnian pine. Man, you've got to have Bosnian pines in your landscape. They're just
this thing is beautiful.
Beautiful. They just grow so neat and compact. They have nice dark green foliage. I have a Louis. That's a eastern white pine, and in the wintertime it turns a bright gold. It's really pretty.
What kind of hydrangea was this again?
A strawberry vanilla.
So this will turn colors in the fall?
As a matter of fact, it's already starting to, if you look right here, you can see the pink coming out. In another few weeks, it'll be more pink looking.
Oh yeah, that is.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That is already beautiful.
And my wife loves to dry those. They make a great dried flower. This gold, oh shoot, the name just slipped my mind.
Some type of spruce.
Gold drift.
Gold drift.
It's a gold drift Norway spruce.
Picea abies.
Picea abies. I love it. And you can see a little gold still on it, but when the new growth comes out in the spring, it's a showstopper.
Oh man.
It's great.
What are these annuals right here?
Well, blue salvia, and then the honey
petunia.
Petunia, the super petunia. Your mom likes to grow these in hanging baskets. I like to grow them in the ground.
They look good in the ground.
They do. I think so. Yeah. And
look at that.
Yeah, glow blue spruce. That thing's off the
pretty.
chart. Yeah.
And this has only been planted here, what, a year?
A couple of years.
Couple years.
And look at the hoops blue spruce behind you. Picea pungens, hoopsii. But what I love about the hoops, the outer foliage is a real bright blue and the inner foliage looks like a Norway, a green. And I like that contrast.
Two-tone.
Yeah, I like that two-tone.
What caught my eye when we were pulling in was this cedar.
Oh, isn't it beautiful?
That's a cream puff cedar?
That's a cream puff
Cedrus
cedar.
deodora?
Cedrus deodora. And I just trimmed back some branches, so I kind of hate that the foliage hasn't come out to hide that, but it still looks good. It'll look, in a few weeks when the foliage covers all that, it'll even look better.
Wow. Isn't this putting on a show?
Dragon's Breath, celosia, I love it. And there's an electric blue cedar.
I love the weeping form of any type of cedar. It just adds another element.
And your business, S&K, carries that. I think it's still easy to get. Some of this stuff's kind of hard to get right now.
Yeah, a lot of these conifers I don't even see anymore.
And I know you carry these at S&K.
That's my favorite arborvitae.
Forever Gold arborvitae, man.
I did a video at my house. I planted a couple of these in front.
And of course, we've already talked about this. You know the story behind it.
Is that Picea Frankenstein?
That's Picea Frankenstein. One of the nurseries that we did business with years ago, I think they were smoking a little bit one day and decided something crazy. But it's a double graft. They grafted a weeping Norway onto a rootstock, and then on top of that, they grafted this glow blue spruce. Isn't that neat?
That is amazing.
So you got Picea abies here and Picea pungens here, which is neat.
I take it back. I thought that was my favorite conifer, but I think it's this weeping Alaskan cedar.
Right, Chamaecyparis nuctensis. I love it.
And it looks like it's been here 20 years.
It does. And you remember when I brought it here a few years ago when I first moved here, I think it was this tall.
Yeah, it's a fast grower.
It's grown fast. And
let me remind everybody, he's only been here a few years.
Right, less than 3 years.
And this looks like it's been here forever.
But I'm telling you, just like you don't build a nice home on a poor foundation, you don't plant nice shrubs in poor soil.
It's the soil we're standing on.
That's where you start.
Absolutely.
Makes all the difference. This little tree back here, tucked in back here, really looks good in the wintertime. It doesn't show off right now, but this is, do you remember this, Chief Joseph?
Yes, I do.
This is a Chief Joseph pine. It's an eastern white pine, Pinus strobus. And you see it's got a gold tint to it, but in the wintertime, it's as gold as the gold on that lantana right there. It's absolutely beautiful.
Amazing.
Some people have driven by my home and think it's dying. It's not dying. It's meant to look that way.
They just don't know what it is.
No, it looks good.
And is this Miss Huff lantana planted
Miss
right
Huff,
here?
yeah.
Wow, that's a sizable plant right there.
Yeah. And it comes back every year.
Yeah, that's one of the most hardy lantanas you can plant. A lot of them don't come back, but this one does.
Justin, the other side of my front conifer garden, I have it's not a problem, but I have to be careful. This side of my conifer garden gets all day sun. This side hardly gets any sun.
Yeah, so you got to be very selective.
So I have to be selective, and I have some mugo pines here, which I love, and they get just enough sun. It's borderline. They really need all day sun, but I think I get enough on them.
They still look relatively healthy.
They do look
There's
good.
nothing else you could plant there that would give you that look. That is pretty.
And of course, I know you're familiar with these Rheingold arborvitae.
Rheingold arborvitae.
Now, someone watching this video, whether they know about this plant or not, it should have more reddish rust color to it. But because they're growing in the shade, they're more of a lime color, which is fine. I'm happy with that. But they will grow in the shade. They just won't get that color.
Here's something you don't see in the South very often.
No. A weeping white spruce.
Weeping white spruce. Picea
glauca, Abies glauca.
Yep, pendula. Yeah, that is pretty right there.
I'm sorry, Picea glauca pendula.
Pendula.
Or pendula or whatever.
Yeah.
We're trying to be so smart, aren't we?
Yeah, we're trying to be. Trying to give people some technicality.
This might be my favorite conifer. This is a oriental spruce, firefly. And they call it a firefly because when the new growth comes out in the spring, every branch tip glows like lights are on it. It's an amazing show.
Before.
It's beautiful. This is a dwarf spruce. It might get 6 feet tall, maybe 7 one day, but it only grows about 1 or 2 inches a year, which is fine. That's why I planted it here. I didn't want to get too big.
Is this a gold mop?
That's a gold mop. And of course,
the tags on these say about 3 to 4 foot tall.
Well, I know, but the soil, now it's not as gold. I've got another one up there. You may have noticed it. This one is more green because here again, it's in the shade. And I like to show that you can grow some things. Some of these conifers will grow in the shade.
They'll tolerate it.
But they may be a different color. They may not grow as thick, but actually I like the way some of them grow in the shade.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And you got to have Japanese maples in your landscape.
There's nothing that gives you that texture and look like a Japanese maple.
This is a waterfall, and I'm telling you, come back in the fall and show this thing when it's changing colors.
Oh, I bet it's beautiful.
It's unbelievable. And this is a red dragon. It's one of my favorite Japanese maples. And here's another oriental spruce. I have 3 oriental spruces in my landscape, and all 3 are different types. This is a Caucasus oriental spruce, and I love oriental spruces. See how neat the little limbs are? It's got small foliage, and it's a nice
short needles, and keeps a nice green color.
Nice green color, and this is growing in the shade. Not all spruces will grow in the shade, but the orientals will. And that's one reason I like to grow them.
Is this a weeping hemlock?
Weeping hemlock.
This thing is beautiful.
Look at the pine cones.
Tsuga canadensis, right?
That's it.
Okay.
Tsuga canadensis.
All right, here we go. Here we go. We're remembering our Latin today.
Yeah.
And look at this as a backdrop.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness.
And you got to come back in the winter now. Of course, the leaves will be off of it, but in the wintertime, this is a coral bark maple, and the wood is bright coral. I mean, it's a showstopper in the winter.
I can't wait to see it.
It's so bright, you can see it from the highway out there.
That's amazing. You just got annuals everywhere. You got some petunias growing there, some lantana. He's got a Kimberly fern up there. I didn't want to walk past this without mentioning it, because this is one of my favorite spruces. This is a Acrocona.
Picea 80.
This is one of the most, to me, one of the prettiest spruces because of the irregular shape. It'll get plenty of height on it. And Alex, if you want to come in, show them the cones.
Let me clean it up. Got spider webs all over.
That's all right.
Yeah, I know it. And let me tell you what's neat about these cones, and you know what I'm gonna say. In the spring, what color are these pine cones?
Bright red.
Bright red.
Cherry red.
It's absolutely a showstopper.
Wow.
And this spruce, the Acrocona, produces more cones than any other spruce tree, and you can just see the cones all over the tips of the branches.
It's just hanging full.
Yeah, it's hanging full.
Very pretty. Very pretty.
And it doesn't get big. The tallest that spruce will get might be 10, 11 feet tall. So it doesn't.
Around here.
Yeah, around here. Now in Oregon or somewhere, it's going to get bigger.
Anything the tag says for Oregon or out west, you can about cut that in half here.
Right.
Tell them a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish here and the struggles and all that.
This is my shade garden, and Alex, who's behind the camera, you see the jungle over there? When I moved here, this entire spot all the way to the highway looked like that over there. So I have worked hard to clean it out, but the biggest issue I have here is 2 things. It's full shade, and the soil is tough. There's a lot of tree roots, there's a lot of clay, and I've had to do a lot of work. But some of the things that will grow in these conditions, and here's a good example, a false cypress, Chamaecyparis. Any type of false cypress will do good in the shade and in these conditions. This is a fern leaf, and I think it's beautiful.
Oh,
now these will grow in the sun too. It's just that they will grow in the shade. If I had this in the sun, getting full sun, it would be a lot thicker than it is. But I like that look. It's very graceful looking.
Absolutely. Are these impatiens here?
Yeah.
You can count on those for growing in the shade.
Absolutely. That's why I have them there. And then Japanese maples do good in the shade. I have a Crimson Queen and another waterfall. And here's another Chamaecyparis. This is a Hinoki. Both of those are Chamaecyparises, false cypress, but they're 2 different kinds. And of course, I have hostas out here, which do good in the shade.
These hostas are beautiful.
You see what happened?
A little bit of deer problems?
A little bit of deer. So I have that issue. The deer love hosta. Now, to a lot of folks, this is country. To me, it's like living in the city.
Yeah.
But I live in
It's pretty rural still.
It's rural. It's a one-stop light town. Falston's a beautiful place. But where I moved from, my wife and I, we moved from a country setting where we lived on a 2-mile stretch of road and you couldn't even see a neighbor's house.
Yeah.
And might see 3 cars go by your home all day. So this has been a little...
Well, he's actually on Main Street, Falston.
Yeah.
And people are all the time stopping and wanting to see his house because there's no other house like it. The use of conifers and how well-rounded you are with the perennials and everything, you can't mimic that look.
Here's another false cypress, Chamaecyparis, crispy. And normally in the sun, it would have a real golden color to it, but out here in the shade, it doesn't, but that's fine. I still like it. It gives me something that will grow in the shade. And you can see I do a lot of things in this area in pots because of the soil problem.
Right, that's smart.
So, and one of my favorites is that hemlock over there.
Wow.
Do you remember that, Justin?
Is that Cole's prostrate?
That's Cole's prostrate. Isn't that amazing?
That is beautiful.
This is a low growing, I think everyone knows what a hemlock tree is. You think of a hemlock, they get 40, 60 feet tall and all that. This is a ground hugging hemlock.
So it'll never get taller. It's just going to continue to run across the ground.
And that's why I planted it in that container to give it some elevation. And you can see here, this is a Sherwood.
This is part of the problems you've had.
Yeah, you can see where I've had this die off. Now it seems to be recovering, so I've left it alone.
It's just so hard competing with those tree roots.
Well,
and you told me before we started filming, this area is very alkaline, which is surprising for this area. You'd almost think it was highly acidic.
That's what I would have thought, but when I did I did several soil tests, and they were all around 8 to 8.5 on the pH scale, which is very alkalinic.
Very.
So I've had to do some things to try and bring that down. Of course.
This is Browillia here?
Yes.
That is one shade flower. It's hard to find a blue flower, but finding a blue shade flower is about impossible. So this is a great choice for shade. Blooms all summer.
Justin, I'm still a long way from getting it filled up, but it's a work in progress. Behind you, Alex, is the other oriental spruce. I meant to point that out. That's a Skylands, and it should have a lot more gold on it, but here again, it's growing in the shade, but it's growing well. It looks pretty, and I like it.
It's very pretty.
But if it were in the sun, it would have a lot more gold color to it. We're leaving the front yard and entering my backyard.
This is where it gets a little spicy.
Yes, it does. But I have my conifer garden continued in here. Another blue boulevard, another Atlas cedar, and man, one of my favorite maples, an autumn moon.
That is beautiful.
Autumn moon, I love it.
And it turns what color in the wintertime or fall time, rather?
Kind of a mix between chartreuse and red.
Oh, I mean,
it'll knock your eyes off. And this is a garnet, Japanese maple, and they turn bright red in the fall.
This has got some size on it too.
Oh, it's a nice maple. Got some age to it.
I love the use of salvia. I love that blue color that you got going on.
Blue, blue flowers are not easy to come by.
I know.
And I like to put blue flowers in my landscape. Frankie boy.
So this is a Frankie Boy Arborvitae.
Arborvitae.
And wow.
I know.
There's nothing that looks quite like this. This is a beautiful evergreen. It stays compact.
I love it. And in case you don't know, an arborvitae, you may hear us use that word, an arborvitae is a western red cedar, or it comes from a western red cedar. Of course, this has been hybridized to...
They grow very good around here,
I love it. Yeah, they grow good.
They can take our southern climate.
And boy, when you talk about ornamental pines, Justin, blue ingle, is that not off the chart?
This is one of my favorite pines you got in your yard.
Alex, you can get a close-up of that if you want to.
Yeah, check out the cones and the blue short needles on it.
That is a Japanese white pine, a Pinus parviflora, and Man, but that's one of the most beautiful. Well, I love blue, so I'm partial to blue, but that's to me one of the prettiest Japanese pines you can.
And for your petunia lovers, is this Picasso?
That's it, Picasso.
Okay, so this is a variegated petunia. It's got the pink blooms with a little bit of green edging. I think those are beautiful.
Oh, I love it too.
And is that bubblegum?
That's bubblegum.
You just can't hardly beat that.
You can't beat that, I'm telling you.
They're aggressive. They put on a show. They bloom all summer. They love our heat. I highly recommend those at the nursery.
And this is just basic flowers. I don't have anything exotic back here, but I forgot, what do you call this? You know what that is.
Scaevola?
Scaevola,
yeah.
Yes. But
with a cordyline in the middle here.
I love how that looks.
Let me show them this Scaevola real quick, because there's two flowers here Bruce has got that will absolutely thrive in heat. That's Scaevola. It loves humidity and heat, and this trailing vinca right here. And that trailing vinca will just continue to cascade. It'll probably touch the ground and keep going.
By the end of July, I'll have to cut it back some. But Scaevola originates from the desert plains of Australia, and this originates from South Africa in the desert plains. So you can't.
Don't get much worse.
It don't get much worse as far
as heat and dryness.
And dryness. So that's two wonderful flowers for the heat. That's one reason I use them here.
That's amazing.
One of my other favorites, here's another hemlock.
Now you got this hemlock.
You remember?
I'll tell you a story about this one. We got this hemlock in, I believe, from Isley Nursery. It was the middle of summer, and I told Bruce, I was like, we need to repot this thing.
Yeah, they were root bound.
They were so root bound. I transplanted it as easy as I could, and it went into straight shock. I mean, it browned out, dropped all of its needles.
We thought it was dead.
Thought it was dead, but Bruce took it home, revived it, and look how it's doing now. That's amazing.
And I actually dug that up from where I used to live and brought it here, so it's been dug up.
It's been dug up twice. And wow, what is this pine right here?
Hillside Gold. That's another prostrate growing pine, and I think that's a Pinus strobus, eastern white pine. I think that's where it originates from.
And I see you got some bugleweed or a jugga under the hemlock. This is a really great ground cover, evergreen.
Evergreen, looks good in the winter. Blooms
in the spring.
April through May.
Suppresses weeds.
Beautiful blue blooms, real pretty.
Do you remember the variety of this coleus?
It's Indian Summer.
Check out the variegation on
Don't you love it?
This coleus.
It's one of my favorite coleus.
That is absolutely gorgeous.
Now this is part of the sun coleus family. They will grow in full sun, but these get about half and half.
That's probably what they prefer.
To be honest, yeah. But and they'll grow in full shade too, but sometimes in the full shade, that type of coleus may not give you the color.
Right, right.
You hear my baby?
I do.
My puppy's
I don't know if y'all
crying.
can pick up on that, but Bruce has a puppy that's
in the house crying because she can't come out with us.
Well, I was really hoping that you'd tell us a little bit about how you compost, because I know you're heavy on composting, and I know when you build your beds up, a lot of that comes from things you're doing in the yard, like collecting grass clippings and whatnot. So could you tell us a little bit about your compost bins?
I will. Of course, you can see how I built my compost bins. You don't have to build a bin. Some people just pile it on the ground. I have a pile over there. But I start with whatever comes out of my yard. Grass clippings, if I'm cleaning off leaves in the vegetable garden. Now, if I have some leaves in the vegetable garden from a plant that's got a fungus problem, you know, blight or something, that they don't go in here.
Okay.
I throw them away.
So you're not just throwing anything.
No.
Are you throwing any table scraps like banana peels or eggshells?
Anything
like that
comes from vegetation,
okay,
or a fruit or whatever. No meat.
And then what's your process? Like, you throw it in here, but then what are you doing to keep it cooking or to get the right consistency?
If it's not raining, I will water my compost about once a week. And of course, you know, here lately it's dry.
It's been very
dry in this area. But I will hose it down about once a week. And but you can see I start with my grass I add my grass clippings and any type of vegetation I can. And this is how it starts. This bin here is only 2 or 3 weeks old. This bin is about 6 weeks old, and you can see how it's already broken down And I come out here about every 2 or 3 days and do just what you see me doing. I turn it over. Turning it over gives oxygen to it and helps it break down a little more. And then we go from the more new bed to the little bit older bed to the much, oh, not much, but a couple of months. This is a couple of months old. And in 2 months, you can see how this has already turned into this. It's almost ready. Actually, I could use it if I wanted to, but I'm gonna wait another month. But it's almost ready to be used. And then this over here is from late March and April scraps, and it's already ready to be used. You can see what it looks like. It's pretty much straight out soil. And then this is what I have left over from last year. I haven't quite finished this bin, but you can see this is from the end of last summer, and you can see what that looks like.
It's just nice and broken down.
Nice.
Ready to be absorbed by the plants.
Nice, rich soil. And what I do, let's go to the vegetable garden and I'll show you how I use this. My vegetable garden, Justin, we've already talked about this, but I had to fence it in because of the pest problems we have here. I have deer, groundhogs, even skunks.
Skunks too?
Believe it or not, I had some corn growing outside this fence, and I come out one day and my stalks were broken over and the corn was eaten off of them, and I pulled out my trail cam to see what did it. It was a skunk.
No way.
It broke the stalk, pulled it down, pulled the corn down to the ground and ate it.
So you're having to fence everything in.
And that's why I'm growing corn in one of my beds in this fenced in area. And I have 3 things growing in one bed. I have squash over here, cucumbers on this side, and then corn in the middle.
That's a very unconventional but effective way to garden because it's obviously producing.
Absolutely. But here's what I do. I'll take my compost that we just talked about, and of course it's under here. I will lay 3 to 4 inches of that compost on top of the soil that's already here. Then I go to my leaves, and this is called leaf mold, and it's what it is nothing but chopped up leaves from last fall, and they're composting on their own. I take those chopped up leaves and I put 2 or 3 inches on top of my soil. That does several things. Number one, it keeps the weeds from germinating. So that's why my beds look so clean. I hardly have any weed problems. Number 2, it holds the moisture in the soil, and that's a good thing. And number 3, great thing about leaf mold is I will leave this in this bed, and by this time next year it will have already broken down into a nice rich soil, so it will enrich the soil that's already here.
It's a no-dig garden.
It's a no-dig garden, and then when I come back next spring to start over with whatever I'm growing in here, I will take my compost and just lay it on top, 2 or 3 inches on top of this, and repeat the process over.
Wow. That's amazing.
And no fertilizer in these beds at all, and look how they're growing.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Makes you want to ditch the rototiller.
Absolutely. And of course, this is an ergonomic raised bed. I did it higher than a lot of people do because I don't want to bend over much. And boy, when you're your age, it ain't such a big deal. When you get my age, you notice those things more. And my bed's over here. Now, you caught me in a transition period, but I've got green beans in this bed. A couple of weeks ago, I had green beans in both beds that I planted in late February. And if you'll notice my beds, I have these 2x4s sticking up a little over a foot above the beds. What I do when I plant my green bean seeds in late February, I will cover them with plastic. And it's late winter, early spring, and of course it's not like up north, but we do get cold weather that time of year. If there's a chance of cold weather, I'll cover them with plastic, and if it's not too hot, you know, if temperatures stay in the 50s or lower during the day but sunny, I'll keep the plastic on. It's like a greenhouse.
Gotcha.
And in between the end of February, when I plant the green bean seeds, till the time they come up and get about that size, I'll just cover them in case there's a threat of frost. But Julie and I out of these 2 beds right here, we started picking our first green beans around May the 18th. I wrote it down. And since then, we have already canned over 30 quarts of green beans just out of these 2 beds.
30 quarts
over 30
of green
quarts.
beans out of 4 by 8 beds?
4 by 8 beds. And you can see,
amazing.
because I've got my green bean plants, this is my second run of green bean plants. I've already dug up the older ones.
My goodness.
Because they were over 3 months old, and you know how they do. But I've got my new plants coming up, and I put 3 rows, 6 plants in each row, so I've got 18 plants. And I always grow a few extra, like you see here, because you'll have 1 or 2 that won't come up. You'll have one like that for some reason. It's not a good plant. I'll dig those up and transfer it to that spot there, and I'll have a full bed.
Well, what I love about the perimeter is you're not just using the fence to keep pests out. You're using it to allow your vegetables to climb on.
Absolutely. This is a Blue Lake pole bean. We love it. You can see here, and I need to pick. I picked 2 days ago. When I picked 2 days ago, these beans were no bigger than that, and now you can see what they look like. I have to pick about every 2 days, maybe 3.
Your tomatoes, you're kind of using the fence to, I just did a video, that's why I was talking about how you can use fence to stake your tomatoes up, and I can see you've done it.
Now, some people will find this strange, but I don't grow bushy tomato plants. I do what's called vining. And these are indeterminate tomatoes. What that means, indeterminate means that their growing season is not determined. In other words, there's no time it will end. As long as the weather is right, they'll keep growing. Last year, these tomato plants were 3 feet over the top of that. They were. I was picking tomatoes the 2nd week in November last year.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
I love how you keep them pruned. Do you ever find that you struggle with sun scald or anything like that?
Sometimes, in like the weather we had last week here, which is unusual for us in June. It was close to 100 degrees every day, and under those conditions you may get some. But what this does, as you notice, when tomato plants, when they grow up, about every foot it will put out a cluster of tomatoes. And by keeping most of the leaves cut off, you allow circulation. So you don't have, how many times in the nursery, Justin, somebody a month after they planted, they come in, something's wrong with my tomato plants. They're wilting, they're turning black, they don't look good.
They're brown.
Because they're not getting, it rains on them. There's so much foliage. That foliage on the inside doesn't dry quickly.
Right.
Next thing you know, you got a fungus.
Those fungus spores just ignite.
And they ignite.
It's like a breeding ground.
Absolutely. But this keeps the plants aired out very well.
So many people are scared to prune because they think it's going to hurt the tomato.
Oh, no.
But obviously.
You only need, I always tell people, I don't want to grow leaves, I want to grow fruit.
That's right. That's what we're here for.
And look, the proof's in the pudding. And of course you can see how, as that plant vines up the fence, you can see a cluster there. There's a cluster getting started. There's a cluster getting started. In 2 weeks, these will look like these down here.
Wow.
And of course, now here's the one thing, the cherry tomatoes. You'll notice how bushy they are up here. Cherry tomatoes don't have the same problems that regular tomatoes have. They don't get the fungi as easy, so you don't have to be as diligent with
about
these.
Keeping them.
And I still keep the leaves off. You can see how I do it, but once they get up here, I don't worry with it too much. Look at all the tomatoes on these.
I mean,
look at the right ones.
I mean,
there.
it's amazing.
Is that not amazing? I love it. And one thing you may have noticed while we've been talking about my vegetables is my flowers. I love to grow flowers in my vegetable
That's
garden.
right, because so many people think you have to keep them separate. You either got to be one way or another. But I love what you do, how you mix in flowers with your vegetables. As you can see, he's got begonias down here. And the whole point of garden is not just functionality. It's to make you feel good.
The aesthetic quality.
It's the aesthetic quality.
When I walk to my vegetable garden, I'm not just pleased at the fruit I'm bearing, but the flowers are pleasing to the eye. But let me tell you, it's not just for that reason. There's another reason I plant flowers in my vegetables. They bring pollinators in.
And that is a big
Do you
problem.
remember when I used to work at the nursery, that guy would come in and he said, there's no bees in my garden. I can't get any pollen. I said, well, do you grow any flowers in your vegetable garden? You remember the look he gave me?
It's like
Son,
it just...
He looked at me like, well, what'd you just say? What you talking about, Willis?
and just look at these petunias. He's got vinca, and it just adds, like you said, an aesthetic quality. It's not just about producing food.
Justin, I told you I plant flowers for the aesthetic quality and the benefit for bringing in pollinators, but I also, marigolds have another benefit. They bring in pollinators that will attack some of the pest insects.
Oh, okay.
And so I like to intermingle marigolds in my vegetable garden.
So this is taking up some real estate, but it's serving three purposes.
It is.
It's fighting off pests. It's bringing in pollinators. It's got an aesthetic quality. Folks, I can't say enough. Plant flowers around your garden. You plant a lot of things in succession. So sometimes people will just plant one row of squash, and if it does bad, they just, well, better luck next year. But you're not scared to just plant again, because people don't realize how late you can plant, especially where we are, where we might not have a frost until Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
So it allows for plenty of time just to keep planting.
And in the south where we live, this area, vegetable plants tend to last about 3 months and they're over.
Just because of the conditions, the harsh conditions,
the heat and the humidity and the pest that the heat and humidity bring in. That's why I told you a minute ago, my vegetable garden is in somewhat of a transition, because the plants I started in late February, early March, they're gone, and I've now got a second run of new plants. And believe it or not, come the end of August, I'll have another run of new plants.
And still have plenty of time to harvest.
Still have plenty of time.
Bruce, again, I hate to keep bringing this up, but it's like you do such a good job with intermingling conifers and flowers. Like, we're leaving your vegetable garden right now, but already he's got junipers planted through here. He's got a spruce. You know, there's such an aesthetic quality.
Columnar spruce. These will grow skinny.
Skinny and narrow.
That's why I have it
and
here.
You've got one on the other end to give it some symmetry.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you've just turned this into a whole landscape bed through here.
Now, next to my vegetable garden, I have my flower garden, but this is not just for looks. It is beautiful to look at, but intermingled in these flowers is where I grow my herbs. I have basil in here. I have rosemary. I have oregano. I have marjoram. I have thyme. I have sage. So I have all that growing among my flowers. So here again, I have something that looks good to the eye. It brings in pollinators, and it has a function.
Is this redhead coleus?
That's redhead coleus.
And then you got the blue spruce as a backdrop?
Yeah, that's a Waldron blue spruce. It doesn't get
very compact blue spruce.
It gets 5 or 6 feet tall. I have another Hoops blue spruce over there. Of course, an Alberta spruce you're standing next to. And behind you is that white spruce. It still looks bad.
This is another one of them that struggled, you took home, and now you're nursing it back to health.
It's a rescue. And I have perennials. Some of these are annuals, but I also have perennials like the coneflower. My daylilies, they've been blooming now for about 4 or 5 weeks, and they just finished. Behind the daylilies, I have Russian sage, which is just coming on. So for the next 2 months, that Russian sage will have a nice blue flower, and I like it. So I've got some fountain grass scattered in here, and I love the way it looks in late summer, fall. It's not pluming yet, but when this starts pluming, it
puts on a show.
Puts on a show. And I have other perennial like the yarrow here, achillea. Now you should have seen this a month ago. These yellow flowers were covering these 3 plants. They were about this tall, and it literally glowed from the back porch. You could see it all the way from the house. But they died, and of course I cut it back, and I get reblooms, but the reblooms aren't quite like the original blooms. Tradescania, now it doesn't look all that, it just looks like grass right now, but it blooms in the morning. So there's blue blooms all over it, and it will bloom all summer. And it's pretty neat. And I have another Tradescania here. This is a variegated form. It has a...
Is this what they call spiderwort also?
Spiderwort.
Or am I thinking of a different plant?
No, that's spiderwort.
Okay.
That's the common name, Tradescania. It was named after John Tradescant, who was Queen Mary's royal gardener.
I did not know that.
And he found it in the Americas, brought it back to England. Everybody in England went nuts over
Now,
it.
is it, if I remember correctly, this is a perennial that'll tolerate a lot of water, is that right?
Right.
So if you're looking for a perennial that maybe you don't have well-drained soil, this is a good one to plant.
And I'm gonna tell you something else too while we're talking about perennials versus annuals.
Okay, let's talk about it.
And I have both in my garden.
Yeah.
But you know, some people, you remember at the nursery, you remember the folks come in, I want something that comes back. If it don't come back, if it doesn't come back, I don't want it.
Right.
And how many times have we said, perennial garden is not what people think it is.
It's not, it's work.
It's work. You don't just plant a hole and throw that plant in it and think, oh, it's gonna come back every year, and in 5 years it's gonna be all over the place and it's gonna bloom pretty and look good all. No, it don't work. It doesn't. Now, there are a few perennials you might get lucky on that will do that, not many. You have to be very strategic with perennials.
Right.
You have to, cause most perennials only bloom for 2 or 3 weeks, and some bloom early spring, late spring, summer, fall. You know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So you got to be strategic.
There's a lot of planting involved. And
Yes.
and if you plant annuals, you're going to have those blooms the whole entire season.
Well, that's why I mix them in my flower beds. I have a mix of perennials.
And again, you've got
and
such
annuals.
a good balance of evergreens and deciduous shrubs and perennials and annuals and vegetables and in this bed you even have your herbs growing.
Right.
What's this little guy right here?
That's a bird nest spruce.
Wow.
That's a spruce that grows round. It grows like a shrub. It may get another 10 inches tall, but that's it. It doesn't grow tall. It will spread out about 3 feet in diameter. It just makes a nice walkway shrub.
Bruce, how would you describe your style of gardening? I wouldn't say you're formal or informal. So what?
A little bit of everything.
What's your thought process for a new bed? Are you trying to have symmetry, or you know, how do you get that layered look that so many people are trying to achieve?
Well, that's the thing. I kind of look at a garden like the human body. You know, our skeleton. You don't see a skeleton when we're talking to each other. Right. But without it, we couldn't exist.
Okay.
And my skeleton for my garden would be like the conifers. And
okay, so the conifers
shrubs,
give you structure.
They give you structure.
And then from there, where do we go?
And then the shrubs, like we talked about in my front garden, they give you the skin, the muscles in the skin that cover the skeleton. And then our hair color, our eye color, beard or no beard, you know, all those features, big, small, nice looking, not nice looking. I'm joking. But anyway, the flowers, perennials, all that stuff, that fills in.
Gotcha.
And so it's kind of,
I've never thought about it that way.
That's kind of how I look at it. But another way I look at my style of gardening is I want it to look good in the worst possible time of the year, which typically is winter, in the dead of winter. If you can make your yard look good in the dead of winter, you've done it. And that's my goal. That's what I try to do. And of course, I do that with conifers and evergreen shrubs. And it's not just because they grow in the winter, but as I mentioned earlier, when we were in my front conifer garden, I pick conifers that have contrast, different colors, different texture. That way in the winter time, when you drive by my house and all you see is conifers, not many flowers, but you'll see a gold conifer, a dark green conifer, a blue conifer, and it's like, dang.
Yeah.
A lot of color.
Grabs your attention.
In the dead of winter.
That's what separates you from the pack.
Just like these Wilma cypresses over here. We didn't mention this earlier. I bought these from you last fall. You might remember they were only that tall.
Yeah, 1 gallon.
I used them in my pots around my back steps. They got, this spring I had to replant them because they were outgrowing the pots, and they will eventually get, you know, 5 or 6 feet tall. But look at the gold color of them.
Looks just like that in the dead of winter.
And in the dead of winter, it'll look just as pretty. And so, I've got a blue Atlas cedar growing behind it. That's a small plant. It eventually get bigger.
And what type of hydrangea you got right here?
That's another strawberry vanilla.
Oh, wow.
And you can see it's already starting to turn pink.
I like this type of hydrangea because the stems are strong.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you find that even when they're in full bloom, they don't lean over?
That's why I like them.
Yeah. I see you got some chickens over here.
Oh, yeah.
Are you getting any eggs?
Oh, I get about a half a dozen every day. That's not the only ones I have. There's another pen on the other side. So
I spied on your back porch a blue star juniper on a standard. Could we go look at that?
I was hoping you would ask.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite, and you know, juniper is a conifer. I don't know, some people may not know that. It's in the conifer family. But Justin, just like you said, now, typically you would see this blue star juniper. It grows low to the ground. But this was grafted on a rootstock that's called a standard, which elevates it. But
almost turns it into a tree.
like a small tree. Isn't that amazing?
And then, is this snow and summer jasmine that you got under it?
Mm-hmm. And let me tell you,
that's a great combination.
This, you notice the tricolor on it? Now, normally it would have a lot more than that. I don't know if you remember, but back in May, we had a late freezing.
Yes.
It didn't kill it, but son,
it zapped it.
It zapped it. I mean, it literally, all that turned brown. I had to cut it back. So it's just now starting to get its color.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is that a Goldilocks
That's
pine?
a Goldilocks.
This is one of my favorite pines, Pinus parviflora Goldilocks.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about it, it's got an irregular shape, evergreen obviously, but it only gets somewhere in the 4 to 6 foot range.
Right.
And in the wintertime, does this not turn?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Beautiful gold.
You got to come back here in the wintertime.
Yeah, we'll have to make another trip.
But
hey, let us know down in the comments section if you want us to come back this winter.
You saw the blue ingle pine a while ago. That's also a Japanese. There's basically two types of Japanese ornamental pines, a parviflora and a densiflora. Parviflora is a white Japanese pine.
Yeah.
Densiflora is a red Japanese pine. But that's a white Japanese pine.
Absolutely beautiful.
Another forever Goldie, but here's what I love. Look at the contrast.
You mind if I give it a hug?
Please. Oh baby, we just love you. But look at the contrast between this forever Goldie, arborvitae, western red cedar, and this Baker's blue spruce. Is that not beautiful? The two next to each other.
It's wonderful.
We love it.
Now are these azaleas?
Azaleas.
And these were here, I think, when you moved in.
They were here when I moved in, and I like them. They look good when they bloom, and they make a good foundation. They're evergreen shrub. But you remember what
in the world is hiding back here?
Do you remember that?
I do remember.
What was it, about that tall when you gave it to me?
Yeah.
Is that it? Now, last week was a little rough on it too. You can see it's gotten a little.
Chemycypris is, if that's a word.
Yeah.
Around here, when we get into summertime, they tend to bleach out a little bit. They get a little bit of scald, but it's not so noticeable that you wouldn't want to grow them here because they survive it.
They survive it, and it's not bad. And like we said last week, we had temperatures near 100.
I think we set some records last week.
For June, that's amazing. Now come late July, August, that's not unusual, but boy, to have those temperatures in June, that was a little rough. I taught horticulture at one time, and I did back when I taught horticulture, we did a project to show how you can grow your own food in a city or urban setting.
Right.
And it's not that hard. All I did was I come along this fence and I took some decking boards and I put them 15 inches apart, and that's all that is. It's 5 different beds made out of decking boards on the ground. I filled them with soil, and I'm growing tomatoes, cucumbers, I've got cantaloupe, I've got watermelon. You can see the different variety. I've got acorn squash coming up here. That's what these 2 plants are. And you can see, I even, as a matter of fact, I'm probably going to put some squash plants in here next week. And you can see just out of that small, that's easy to make. Anybody can make a box like this. Anybody can do that.
Right.
And all I did was take those boxes, put them next to the fence, fill them with soil, and just start planting.
And it's not taking up a lot of space. It makes a good use of this little area back here that you probably wouldn't use in otherwise.
Absolutely. And look at all the fruit that I'm getting out of this one little area.
Are these some heirloom varieties of tomatoes? I know you...
They are. That's what everything I'm growing back here are heirlooms. I know we didn't talk about that, but that tomato and that tomato is called Oxheart. That's a Cherokee purple, and this is called a Sun Globe. You see, it's kind of a yellow tomato. Real sweet, nice tomato. And one reason some people don't like heirlooms. Heirloom tomatoes do tend to be gnarly and a little ugly sometimes. But Justin, you grow them, you can't beat the taste of them.
The flavor profile is where it's at.
The flavor of a heirloom tomato is...
If you want that good old homegrown taste, you got to grow heirlooms, don't you?
And growing, now this is...
There's some good hybrids too.
In gardening, we have a term called volunteer. Do you know what a volunteer is?
What's that?
Well, I've got a volunteer right here. I've got several of them.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
I grew these here last year. This is Cosmos. I had some in my flower garden back there next to the vegetables. It's the orange, yellow colored flower. It's called Bright Lights Cosmos. I had these last year, and see, these are coming up from seeds from last year's plants.
Do you plant Cosmos again for pollination? I know Cosmos tends to bring a lot of
brings
bees.
A lot of pollinators, bees in.
Yeah,
yes.
so those will come up and help you out here.
And there's other pollinators in the insect world that are not bees. You know, there's other,
gotcha.
And they bring them in.
Okay, so right here, I'm familiar with this because I planted some at my house. This is a Carex sedge grass.
That's it.
It might be Everillo or Everoro. I can't remember which one.
I think it's Everoro. I think it is.
What I love about these sedge grasses, he's got them planted under his maple, and these do great as underplantings because they tolerate a lot of shade, but they don't lose their color. And I might have mentioned it before, but it's an evergreen, so you're going to have this year-round all through the winter. And I love how you just incorporate the use of grasses to get that other texture.
Oh, I love grasses. And I cut those back late February. I'll cut them down to about that tall.
Yeah.
And then let them come back out again.
Get all that dead off.
Yeah.
So Bruce, let's say somebody has a new area and they're wanting to make a landscape bed. Can you walk us through a little bit of the process of how you make these beds?
What I like to do, believe it or not, when I create a new bed, if I have grass under it that I want to kill, I will put cardboard down, and I will wet it. I've seen
that used.
I will wet it, and the cardboard eventually deteriorates, and it goes into the soil. It's kind of good for the soil. It is good for the soil.
Okay.
But here's the key. The reason I don't use something like black plastic keeps oxygen from getting to the roots.
Okay.
Black plastic breaks down over time and makes a mess, and it doesn't do what people think. They think they're going to keep weeds out. If you want to keep weeds out of your flower bed, keep mulching like I said a while ago.
Okay.
Take your soil and make a 2 or 3 inch layer of mulch, and then maybe add some leaf compost like I do. But that constant mulching will keep the weeds down. You don't see many weeds in my garden, and I promise you, I don't come out here every day and pull weeds up. I don't have time for that.
Okay, but so it's the constant mulching. It keeps the weeds suppressed. It feeds your plants, I guess, over time as it breaks down.
Right. It feeds your plants. It keeps them healthy. It allows oxygen to get to the roots. And the drainage, when you're building up, just like right here in this flower bed, you can see, if you stand back and look, you can see it's raised. Because every year when I add 2 or 3 inches of compost or soil there, and then I don't have leaf mold there, but usually I do, but that raises the bed up. Now when that breaks down, it'll go back down, but the process of doing it every year keeps it raised and elevated, which allows for good drainage. And like I said, not only that, but you'll hardly get no weeds.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for letting us come over. I've personally enjoyed it. I'm like a kid in a candy store when I come over here. I know the audience has enjoyed it, and we just appreciate your time and letting us look around.
Man, I was glad to have you.
I know I certainly enjoy doing garden tours. If you want to see more of this kind of content, let us know down in the comment section. And if you'd like for us to come back this winter, because I think we'd be in for a few more surprises. Well, until next time,
Become a plant person.